U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi has become the first U.S. House leader since the year 1997 to visit Taiwan. Pelosi's visit comes despite that warning of consequences by China. It happens even as reports emerge of Chinese aircraft now crossing the Taiwan Strait, long considered the unofficial border between China and Taiwan. So the tensions in South Asia are rising with the Pelosi visit to Taiwan. Let's get perspective on this. Meera Shankar is former ambassador to USA and Germany, and she's joining us on India Tonight. Great to have you with us, ma'am. The U.S. House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, is making one of the most high-level visits to the island nation of Taiwan. It's the first time in 25 years that a high-level U.S. representative is visiting the self-governed nation of 24 million people. Taiwan is also the nation claimed by Beijing as its own. This should further worsen relations between China and U.S. That is a given. There is already military tension amidst all the rhetoric flying around. How seriously do you think it's going to impact the already tense relationship between the U.S. and China with this American move? How much further does it get dented?
I think it will exacerbate tensions between the US and China. We've seen military mobilizations on both sides. The Chinese have been sending their aircraft to buzz the median line in the Taiwan Strait, and also their ships. And while their aircraft have returned, the ships remain there. The US has deployed 4 warships, including an aircraft carrier east of Taiwan. So, and the Taiwanese themselves say they are completely prepared for any countermeasures or action that the Chinese may take. So it's a pretty tense situation. In fact, this has been one of the sticking points that China has been raising with the US, that there appears to have been some shift in the US's one China policy, which was articulated during the Nixon visit, which shifted the US-China relationship from adversarial to cooperative. And so this is something the Chinese lay a great deal of stress on. The US has been saying that they continue to abide by the One China policy, but they are also guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, which provides that they should ensure that Taiwan has the means to defend itself and that they are against any forcible measures to change the status quo. President Biden has taken this a step further, and I think there are almost 2 or 3 statements that he's made,
yes,
saying that the US is committed to come to the defense of Taiwan in the event that there is an effort to change or to use force
yes,
by China. His officials have walked this back,
yes,
saying there's no change in the policy of the US. But President Biden himself has made 3 very specific statements.
yes.
Now,
I'll come to that in a moment. I just want to get a perspective from you, since Pelosi's visit to Taiwan comes days after the Chinese President Xi Jinping had, over a phone call with President Biden, warned the US President of unspecified countermeasures should Pelosi go ahead with this visit to Taiwan. What do you think is the American strategy over here? Because you cited that the American strategy is very clear. They claim that they stick to the One China policy. And yet, as far as Taiwan relations are concerned with the US, they have another set as a strategy. How far do you think China is going to go to stop this entire thing from declining further? Because it seems that they've taken a very adversarial stance.
Well, they have made very threatening statements. In fact, Xi Jinping is quoted as saying those who play with fire will perish by it. And the Foreign Office spokesman has warned of Chinese countermeasures, as they call them, since the US has not listened to China's persistent and serious representations on the issue. So China has been upping the ante, but seasoned China watchers basically expect that China will put pressure on Taiwan subsequently, and that they will not necessarily raise the ante with the use of force at this time, because Xi Jinping's People's Congress is coming up, and he would like to ensure, that that goes smoothly, and that his succession, that his continuation goes smoothly. So I think that the general expectation is that there will be pressure on Taiwan. This will come after some time, and this could be economic through trade sanctions, which China has already imposed on some, I think, two imports from Taiwan already, including fish and one other item. They could expand that list of sanctions. They could continue their existing policy of, having their military aircraft and military ships cross the median line in an effort to um, put pressure on
Yes,
Taiwan.
and which they have consistently been doing over a period of time.
Yes,
I also want to get
yes.
in my colleague Srinjoy Chaudhary is also joining us, and he's here to tell us about where the situation stands. Of course, the war of words is continuing. As far as the One China policy is concerned, China believes that US is not sticking to the One China policy. Srinjoy, what have you heard so far? Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, she is in Taipei. Now tell us how things have panned out ever since she's been there.
Well, it's very important at this moment in history because this is a kind of superpower collision, and both sides are refusing to relent. The Americans are making it very clear they will go ahead with this trip, and Nancy Pelosi is where she is. The Chinese are saying it's an infringement on sovereignty. Now, there have been cases like this, there have been worse cases. For instance, the Cuban Missile Crisis is perhaps another moment in history. There was a situation in Berlin in the 40s when it was similar. So there have been situations, and we will have to see how things work out in the next 24 hours, because this is a very critical moment. Neither side wants to back down. Both sides have really, in a sense, painted themselves into a corner. And as a result, this is a time when shadow boxing is at its height.
It certainly seems to be the case. Tensions are certainly mounting, and it's the kind of effect that's playing out in the markets, which are turning jittery. Wall Street is taking it on the chin as we speak. We'll see how much more it damages sentiment across the world. But for the moment, that's where things stand. Srinjoy, thanks very much for putting us through the entire situation as it stands as of now. Now, let's also talk about the death of the Al-Qaeda leader, Al-Zawahiri, since we have Meera Shankar with us. Meera Shankar, how does the death of the Al-Qaeda leader through that US drone strike in Afghanistan actually impact India? We know that Al-Zawahiri had drawn parallels between Kashmir and Palestine in the past, and he also criticized Islamic countries like Saudi Arabia for supporting India. But does his death bear a deeper impact for India in its fight against terror and alignment with countries like the US on that count?
Yes, I think it will demoralize Al-Qaeda, because their entire leadership at the central level has been wiped out. And though, of course, in recent years it had acted more as a franchise with different regional groups exercising their own autonomy and making their own plans. Still, the absence of a central motivating leadership, I think, will demoralize the cadres. I think what is also important is that the US has demonstrated that though its troops are not on the ground in Afghanistan anymore, they can, when they want to, ensure that Afghanistan does not become a safe haven for specific terrorists or terrorist groups. Now, in this case, what is even more interesting is that Al-Zawahiri was living in Kabul in a house which belonged to a very close aide of Sirajuddin Haqqani, the Taliban leader who is extremely close to Pakistan. So obviously there are rifts within the Taliban leadership, also with different groups pulling in different directions. But it's a warning signal to the Taliban that the US is capable of taking out individual terrorists if they take shelter within Afghanistan.
Meera Shankar, it's a pleasure talking to you and getting your perspective on these two big stories. Of course, as far as the Pelosi visit to Taiwan is concerned, that is a moving piece and we are tracking it very closely and we'll continue to do it through the evening.